What does it really mean to be rich? Is it the size of your bank account, the luxury of your possessions, or the prestige of your social status? These questions have intrigued mankind for millennia, but perhaps no philosophical tradition has offered more profound and practical advice than Stoicism. Founded in Athens around 300 BC, Stoicism presents a radical perspective on wealth that resonates powerfully in our consumerist world of constant social comparison. The Stoics did not equate wealth with material abundance or external markers of success. Instead, they saw true wealth as an inner state, a condition of self-sufficiency, moderate desires, and inner freedom. The Stoic view offers a refreshing alternative in a world where we are constantly bombarded with messages that equate happiness with acquisition. They challenge us to look beyond the superficial trappings of wealth and consider what really enriches us. The wealth of our life does not consist in having great possessions, but in having few desires, said Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most influential teachers. This simple but profound statement sums up the Stoic approach to wealth and suggests that true wealth does not come from accumulating more, but from needing less. Seneca, another impressive figure in Stoic philosophy, echoed this sentiment when he wrote that it is not the man who has little, but the man who wants more that is poor. These words strike at the heart of our modern dilemma, the endless cycle of desire and dissatisfaction that keeps us chasing the next big thing. We are never satisfied with what we have. The Stoics not only criticized the pursuit of wealth, they offered a constructive alternative. They advocated a life of virtue, self-discipline, and inner cultivation. It is the most powerful person who has power over himself, Seneca advised, pointing to self-mastery as the ultimate form of wealth. This perspective invites us to redefine what it means to live a prosperous life and encourages us to look inward to find fulfillment instead of constantly seeking it in external circumstances. The Stoics teach that true wealth lies in our ability to find contentment in the present moment, cultivate wisdom and courage, and live in harmony with our deepest values. The wisdom of the Stoics offers us a path to a more meaningful and prosperous existence. It shows that the richest life is not filled with many possessions, but those that are most aligned with our values, most at peace with ourselves, and most open to the richness of human experience. This philosophy challenges us to re-evaluate our priorities and consider how we can live more authentically and fulfilling lives. The teachings of Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius offer us tools to cultivate a form of wealth that is independent of external circumstances and can lead to a life of greater balance and satisfaction. Through the practice of Stoic principles such as self-discipline and moderation, we can find a source of inner wealth that sustains us through the challenges of modern life. Lesson 1. The Stoic View on Wealth. The Stoics, through their keen observations and life experiences, developed a profound and paradoxical understanding of material wealth. Their insights challenge our conventional notions of what it means to be rich, offering a perspective that is both enlightening and liberating. We begin with Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers. In one of his letters, he writes that money does not make anyone rich. These individuals possess riches just as we say we have a fever, when in fact, the fever dominates us. This metaphor reveals Seneca's view that wealth often possesses people and not the other way around. Seneca observed that many rich people in Rome were paradoxically among the spiritually poorest. Money made them obsessive, controlled their schedules, and surrounded them with insincere flatterers. Instead of providing freedom, wealth became a burden, enslaving them to constant worry and fear of loss. This idea is echoed in another Seneca quote: "It is not the man who has little, but the man who yearns for more, who is poor." Here, Seneca points to the greedy nature of desire. No matter how much wealth someone accumulates, they will remain spiritually impoverished if the desire for more persists. Epictetus, another impressive figure in Stoic philosophy, shared this perspective. A former slave who gained his freedom and became a respected teacher, Epictetus had a unique insight into the true nature of wealth and freedom. He once told a story about a man who received a lucrative job offer from the Emperor Augustus. The man came to Epictetus boasting about the money and fame he would gain. Epictetus, however, was not impressed. He answered with probing questions that went straight to the heart of what really matters in life. "I told him not to touch it," Epictetus told his students. When the man protested that he would earn a lot of money, Epictetus replied, "Yes, but not for long." In return, the man argued that many people would learn his name, whereupon Epictetus asked, "Are you going to be there every time someone says your name?" When the man said that his name would survive him, Epictetus said, "Just like a stone on which your name is engraved." Finally, when the man boasted that he was wearing a golden crown, Epictetus delivered the final blow. "And they will put a crown made of roses on your funeral. You will be even more elegant with it." Through this dialogue, Epictetus demonstrates the fleeting and unsatisfying nature of external markers of wealth and success. He encourages us to look beyond superficial gains and consider the true cost of seeking wealth, the sacrifices, compromises, and spiritual poverty that often accompany it. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher and emperor, also expressed his views on this subject. He said the famous phrase, "We all love ourselves more than other people, but we are more concerned with the opinion of others than with our own." This observation highlights how our perception of wealth is often shaped more by society's expectations and the judgments of others than by our own values and sense of achievement. The Stoics teach that true wealth comes from within, from a state of inner freedom, contentment, and self-domination. As Epictetus said, wealth does not consist in having great possessions, but in having few desires. This radical redefinition of wealth shifts our focus from external accumulation to internal cultivation. By moderating our desires, cultivating contentment with what we have, and developing our internal resources, the Stoics argue that we can achieve much more lasting and satisfying wealth than material riches. These ancient insights challenge us to reevaluate our modern notions of wealth and success. They invite us to consider whether we are genuinely enriched by the size of our bank accounts or the number of assets we accumulate, or whether we can find a deeper and more lasting form of wealth by mastering ourselves, moderating our desires, and focusing on what really matters in life. The Stoic view on wealth offers us a path to freedom. Freedom from the endless cycle of desire and dissatisfaction, freedom from the tyranny of other people's opinions, and freedom to live a life aligned with our deepest values. By embracing this perspective, we open ourselves to a form of wealth that no market crisis can diminish and no thief can steal. The wealth of a life well lived. Lesson 2. Define personal wealth. One of the first and most crucial lessons we can learn from Stoicism is the importance of defining our personal wealth. This definition should not be dictated by social norms or the expectations of others, but should be based on our genuine values, needs, and desires. The Stoics invite us to reflect on what really matters in our lives and to define wealth in terms of quality and not quantity. Epicurus, although not a Stoic but sharing some philosophical affinities, said, "Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you do not have. Remember that what you have now was once among the things you only hoped to have." This teaching invites us to recognize and appreciate what we already have, rather than constantly being in search of something new and better. The Stoics maintain that true wealth consists in having few desires, and this begins with understanding what is truly enough for us. Modern society constantly bombards us with messages urging us to desire more money, more possessions, more status. However, this incessant desire for more can become a trap, leading us to a life of dissatisfaction and stress. The Stoics challenge us to break this cycle, to recognize when we have enough, and to find contentment in enough. Marcus Aurelius, in his Thoughts, writes, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This quote reminds us that true wealth does not come from the accumulation of material goods, but from living a virtuous and meaningful life. Personal wealth, according to the Stoics, is closely related to our ability to live in accordance with our deepest values and to pursue what is truly important to us. Defining our personal wealth also implies a deep reflection on our desires and needs. We must ask ourselves, what makes me truly happy? What gives me a sense of fulfillment and inner peace? These questions help us to identify what is really important to us and to focus on these aspects rather than being distracted by superficial and fleeting desires. The Stoics teach us that happiness and contentment do not come from having everything we desire, but from learning to desire what we have. This lesson is particularly relevant in our modern world, where we are constantly pushed to compare ourselves with others and measure our success by external standards. The Stoics invite us to look inward, to cultivate a sense of contentment and gratitude for what we already have, and to find wealth in simplicity and self-sufficiency. Defining personal wealth is an ongoing process that requires introspection and self-awareness. It is not just about reducing our desires, but aligning them with our deeper values and goals. When we can do this, we discover a form of wealth that is far more stable and lasting than material riches. The Stoics teach us that true wealth is an inner state of contentment and peace, and that we can achieve it regardless of our external circumstances. Defining our personal wealth in these terms allows us to live a more authentic and fulfilling life, free from the tyranny of desire and the need for social comparison. Lesson 3. Knowing what is enough is a crucial concept for living a rich and full life, according to the Stoics. This principle is based on the ability to recognize and appreciate what we already have, rather than constantly being in search of something more. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, observed that it is not the man who has little but the man who wants more that is poor. This recasts poverty not as a lack of goods, but as an insatiable desire for more. The Stoics teach us that the key to true wealth is to moderate our desires and find satisfaction in the sufficient. Seneca, in particular, emphasized the importance of appreciating what one has and not falling into the trap of incessant desire. He wrote, "He is not poor who has little, but he who desires more than he has." This statement invites us to reflect on how our perception of poverty and wealth is influenced by our desires and expectations. True wealth, according to Seneca, does not consist in accumulating more and more, but in being able to recognize and appreciate what we already possess. This principle is particularly relevant in the modern context, where we are constantly bombarded with messages urging us to want more and to compare ourselves to others. The Stoics teach us that the secret to a rich and satisfying life is to find a balance between our desires and what we actually have. Recognizing and appreciating enough is a radical act in a world that bombards us with messages of more, bigger, and better. It invites us to challenge social norms and find a sense of satisfaction and contentment regardless of external circumstances. This concept is closely related to the practice of gratitude. Being grateful for what we have helps us focus on the present and recognize the abundant blessings that already exist in our lives. Gratitude allows us to see the wealth we already possess, rather than focusing on what is lacking. The Stoics teach us that true wealth does not come from having everything we desire, but from learning to desire what we have. This implies a change of mindset, a shift from scarcity to abundance, from lack to sufficiency. Knowing what is enough also helps us avoid the anxiety and stress associated with the relentless pursuit of more. When we recognize that we have enough, we are free to focus on what is really important in life, such as relationships, personal growth, and inner well-being. This awareness allows us to live a more balanced and fulfilling life, free from the pressure of always having to reach new heights and accumulate more possessions. The Stoics urge us to cultivate a mindset of abundance and sufficiency, to find contentment in the present moment, and to recognize the true wealth that already exists in our lives. This does not mean settling for less or giving up ambition, but rather finding a balance between our desires and what is truly necessary to live a rich and meaningful life. The practice of knowing what is enough helps us to live more consciously and intentionally, to value what we have, and to cultivate a sense of inner peace and contentment. Lesson 4. Practice poverty. Seneca advised, reserve a few days to be content with the simplest food and coarsest clothes, saying to yourself, "Is this what I feared?" This practice is not about glorifying poverty or denying our needs, but is a tool to build resilience, cultivate gratitude, and free ourselves from the fear of loss that often accompanies material wealth. The practice of poverty, according to the Stoics, helps us understand that our happiness and well-being do not depend on material goods, but on our ability to adapt and find contentment in the simplest circumstances. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, often wrote about the importance of practicing poverty to prepare for adversity and to develop greater mental and emotional resilience. He believed that periodically living with less allows us to confront our fears and discover that we can survive and even thrive with much less than we think. This exercise helps us build greater self-confidence and reduce our dependence on material goods. The practice of poverty also helps us to develop greater gratitude for what we have. When we voluntarily deprive ourselves of certain comforts and luxuries, we learn to value more of what we normally take for granted. This not only increases our daily satisfaction and happiness, but also helps us maintain a balanced perspective on life and avoid the insatiable desire for more and more. The Stoics teach us that true wealth does not consist in having everything we desire, but in desiring what we have. The practice of poverty helps us cultivate this mindset, showing us that we can find contentment and satisfaction even in the simplest circumstances. This lesson is especially relevant in our modern world, where we are constantly bombarded with messages urging us to desire more and compare ourselves to others. The Stoics urge us to look inward, to cultivate a sense of contentment and gratitude for what we already have, and to find richness in simplicity and self-sufficiency. The practice of poverty also helps us reduce our dependence on material goods and develop greater inner freedom. When we learn to live with less, we discover that many of our needs and desires are actually superfluous, and that we can live a full and fulfilling life without having to continually accumulate possessions and wealth. This awareness allows us to focus on what is really important in life, such as relationships, personal growth, and inner well-being. The practice of poverty teaches us that true wealth comes from within, from our ability to find contentment and satisfaction in the present moment, regardless of our external circumstances. The Stoics urge us to cultivate a mindset of abundance and sufficiency, to find contentment in the present moment, and to recognize the true wealth that already exists in our lives. This does not mean settling for less or giving up ambitions, but rather finding a balance between our desires and what is really necessary to live a rich and meaningful life. Lesson 5. Cultivate gratitude. The Stoics constantly remind us to cultivate gratitude as the way to true inner wealth. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Take a moment every day to think how fortunate you are. Think of all the things you have, and how much the people who have given them to you have enriched you." This practice is not just an exercise in positive thinking, but a profound way to ground ourselves in the present moment and recognize the abundance that already surrounds us. Gratitude, according to the Stoics, is a powerful practice that can transform our perception of life and wealth. When we are grateful for what we have, we shift our focus from desiring what is lacking to appreciating what is already present. This transformation of perspective allows us to see our lives in a more positive way and to recognize the true abundance that already exists. Epictetus, one of the most important Stoic philosophers, emphasized the importance of gratitude in his Enchiridion. He wrote, "Let us not seek to have events as we wish, but let us want events as they are, and our life will proceed peacefully." This quote invites us to practice gratitude by accepting the circumstances of our lives as they are, without trying to change them or resist them. This acceptance allows us to find peace and contentment in the present and to appreciate what we have, rather than focusing on what is lacking. Gratitude also helps us develop a greater awareness and appreciation for the little things in life. When we practice gratitude, we learn to notice and appreciate the details we often take for granted, such as the warmth of the sun, the smile of a friend, or the beauty of a flower. This awareness allows us to live a fuller and more satisfying life, finding joy and abundance in the small, everyday things. The Stoics teach us that true wealth does not come from having everything we desire, but from learning to desire what we have. This lesson is especially relevant in our modern world, where we are constantly bombarded with messages urging us to desire more and compare ourselves to others. Gratitude helps us to turn inward, to cultivate a sense of contentment and appreciation for what we already have, and to find richness in simplicity and self-sufficiency. Practicing gratitude also helps us develop greater resilience and inner strength. When we are grateful for what we have, we learn to see challenges and difficulties as opportunities to grow and learn rather than as insurmountable obstacles. This perspective allows us to face life with greater confidence and courage, knowing that we already have everything we need to be happy and fulfilled. The Stoics urge us to cultivate a mindset of abundance and sufficiency, to find contentment in the present moment, and to recognize the true wealth that already exists in our lives. This does not mean settling for less or giving up ambitions, but rather finding a balance between our desires and what is truly necessary to live a rich and meaningful life. Gratitude is a powerful practice that helps us to live more consciously and intentionally, to value what we have, and to cultivate a sense of inner peace and contentment. Ancient Stoic wisdom offers us a radically different perspective on wealth and happiness than modern conceptions. Through awareness of our true needs, defining our personal wealth, recognizing what is sufficient, practicing poverty, and cultivating gratitude, we can discover a form of inner wealth that is independent of external circumstances and enduring over time. By living according to these principles, we can free ourselves from the constant pressure to accumulate more material possessions and instead find contentment and satisfaction in the present. We can develop greater resilience to adversity, a deep sense of gratitude for what we already possess, and a more balanced and meaningful life. Stoic teachings remind us that true wealth lies not in the possession of things, but in the ability to find joy and abundance in the simple wonders of life. Adopting these principles can profoundly transform our perception of wealth and success, leading us to a more authentic and fuller life. I invite all of you to reflect on these Stoic teachings and integrate them into your daily lives. Start with small steps. Take time each day to practice gratitude. Experience simplicity and redefine your needs and desires. Discover how true wealth can emerge from within, regardless of external circumstances. If you would like to delve further into Stoic philosophy and discover more practical tools for living a richer, more fulfilling life, I encourage you to explore the resources available on classical Stoic texts and modern interpretations. Recommended books can be found in the description, ready to guide you towards a deeper understanding of wealth and well-being. Take charge of your destiny today and begin the journey to a life of true abundance and inner happiness. The wisdom of the ancient Stoics is at your disposal, ready to guide you towards a deeper understanding of wealth and well-being. Don't forget to like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos. Thanks for watching and good luck on your journey to a richer and more meaningful life.